There's a point every trader reaches where charts, indicators, and tips don't matter anymore. You realize the market isn't your enemy, your broker isn't your problem, and the news doesn't move your account balance as much as your own emotions do. The real battlefield isn't on Wall Street or your trading platform, it's in your mind. Every man who enters the market eventually faces himself, and when that day comes, he learns the truth that breaks or makes him the market is never wrong. Opinions, hopes, and fears are wrong. The market only reflects your discipline or your lack of it. When I started out, I thought trading was about cleverness, spotting patterns, listening to rumors, or being quick to act. But over the years, I learned that the real art of speculation lies in mastering yourself. The moment you let greed or fear dictate your trades, you've already lost, even if the price moves in your favor. Because eventually, the same emotion that rewarded you will destroy you. There was a time I'd make a fortune in the morning and lose it by evening, not because the market turned against me, but because I turned against myself. I wanted more. I wanted to prove I was right. I ignored my own rules, thinking I was smarter than the tape. That's the disease of most traders. They think intellect can beat emotion, but the market doesn't reward intelligence, it rewards control. The tape doesn't lie. Prices move for reasons you and I may never understand, and they don't need to make sense. Your only job is to react with discipline, not emotion. Yet, human nature rebels against that. You see a stock going up, and greed whispers, "Get in, don't miss it." You see it falling, and fear screams, "Sell before you lose it all." Between those two voices, most men destroy themselves. I've seen traders make 1,000 good trades and still go broke on one emotional mistake. Because that one trade wasn't about profit or loss, it was about pride. They couldn't admit they were wrong. They couldn't take a small loss. They held on, hoping the market would forgive them. But the market doesn't forgive, it only teaches, and usually in the most expensive way possible. I once made a killing in cotton. The trade was perfect, the analysis sound, the timing right, but I overstayed. I had profits that could have set me for life, and I wanted more. I didn't sell when the signal came. I told myself it would rise higher. It didn't. The market reversed, and I watched my fortune melt away. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't have the strength to do it. That's the core of trading psychology. Knowing is easy, doing is hard. Every trader knows the rule. Cut your losses, let your profits run, but few live by it. The reason is simple. Emotion doesn't care about logic. Emotion wants control, and if you let it, it will. Fear disguises itself as caution. Greed disguises itself as confidence. They both wear masks, whispering lies into your ear. Hold on a bit longer. It'll come back. You deserve more. That's how most fortunes vanish. When I was young, I thought I could outsmart the market. Later, I learned that the market was merely a mirror showing me my own weaknesses. Every loss I ever took was a lesson in emotional control. Every win that I gave back was a reminder that the greatest danger comes after success, not failure. Because after a win, your emotions whisper that you're invincible. Success makes you careless. You loosen your stops. You trade bigger. You stop studying. You forget that the market can humble any man at any time. The moment you stop fearing the market, you've already lost respect for it, and that's when it punishes you most. I've seen men cry over their positions, beg the market for mercy, pray to be made whole again. They thought they were fighting the trend, but they were fighting their own emotions. The market doesn't care whether you're desperate or confident. It moves because millions of others are acting out their emotions collectively, and your job is not to join the crowd, but to stand apart from it. Trading is a lonely game, but it must be. You can't rely on the crowd's judgment. The crowd is driven by panic and euphoria, not analysis or discipline. When everyone is buying, you must train yourself to ask, who's left to buy? When everyone is selling, you must ask, who's left to sell? That simple shift of perspective is what separates the speculator from the gambler. Most traders think they need more knowledge, but what they truly need is more emotional restraint. A man can make a fortune from a single repeating pattern if he has the discipline to wait for it. But most can't wait. They get bored. They crave action. They trade because they want to feel something, excitement, hope, relief, and that's why they lose. A trade should be as emotionless as pulling a trigger. Either your conditions are met or they aren't. You enter or you don't. You exit or you don't. You don't argue, you don't hope, you don't pray. Hope belongs in the church, not the market. I remember once holding a losing position far too long. Every day I told myself I'd close it tomorrow, that it would bounce. It didn't. I watched it erode, bit by bit, because I was too proud to admit defeat. I learned that the hardest thing in speculation isn't taking a loss, it's taking the first loss. That small, clean, controlled loss is your friend. It keeps you alive. But when you delay, that small loss becomes a large one, and soon it's no longer about money, it's about your ego. Emotional control means you trade your plan, not your feelings. You must decide in advance what your risk is, where you'll exit, and how much pain you can endure, and then obey that rule like it's the law. Because in the market, there are no second chances for disobedience. The rules you break today will cost you tomorrow. I always said, the market is designed to fool most people, most of the time, but it only fools those who are ruled by emotion. The disciplined man, the man who has learned to feel fear and act against it, or to sense greed and resist it, that man has a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance. You cannot remove emotion from trading, but you can master it. You must observe it, understand it, and restrain it. Each loss should teach you where emotion overtook reason. Each win should remind you to remain humble, because the moment you believe you've conquered emotion, it returns stronger, disguised in a new form. There's a rhythm to the market, waves of optimism and despair, and within each wave, traders lose themselves. They buy too high in hope and sell too low in fear. The wise trader learns to recognize that rhythm and detach himself from it. He observes the crowd's emotion, but doesn't participate in it. Control doesn't mean coldness, it means clarity. When you feel excitement, ask yourself, why? When you feel fear, ask, what am I protecting? Awareness is the first step toward control. Without it, you're just reacting like every other man in the pit. I've sat through rallies where I wanted to jump in so badly I could feel it in my bones. I've stared at plunges that made my hands tremble, ready to hit sell, but I forced myself to wait. I told myself, if this emotion is so strong, it's probably wrong. And more often than not it was, because by the time emotion reaches its peak, the move is nearly over. The crowd's greatest excitement usually marks the top. Their deepest fear marks the bottom. That's why trading is not a game of prediction, but of patience. The man who can wait without acting on impulse will outlast the genius who trades every tick. Emotional discipline is endurance, the ability to do nothing when everything inside you screams to do something. The hardest trade to make is often no trade at all. But that's what separates the speculator from the gambler. The gambler needs action. The speculator needs opportunity. If you can't sit still, you can't win. I made most of my fortune not by trading constantly, but by waiting for the right moment, and when it came, I bet big. That's control. The strength to do nothing until it's time to do everything. Most men can't handle boredom. They confuse silence for danger. But silence is where clarity lives. The market doesn't move for your entertainment. The less you trade out of emotion, the more your capital grows in safety, waiting for precision instead of impulse. Even today, the same emotional traps exist, only the tools have changed. Traders now have charts, algorithms, and social media, but the psychology is identical. The temptation to chase, the fear of missing out, the urge to double down, those are as old as speculation itself. Technology evolves, but human nature doesn't. If you can master that, not the tools, but the nature behind them, you'll survive any era. You'll understand that trading is not about predicting the market, but controlling yourself within it. And that, my friend, is where fortunes are preserved, and where peace of mind is found, not in knowing what the market will do, but in knowing what you will do when it does it. Every man comes to the market thinking he can beat it, that he's different, that he'll be the one to conquer it. I thought that too. But what you learn, after years of victories and humiliations, is that you don't beat the market, you survive it. You align yourself with it, respect it, and discipline yourself to move only when the rhythm calls for it. Controlling your emotions is not about suppressing them, it's about understanding their language so they stop controlling you. You see, emotions aren't the enemy. They're signals, warning signs, instincts, alarms. The problem is when you mistake them for instructions. Fear says get out. Greed says get in. Neither is necessarily wrong, but both must be tested against reason. The professional doesn't obey emotions. He interprets them. He listens but verifies. Once, during a roaring bull market, I remember being almost intoxicated by the speed of the gains. The air on the trading floor was electric, men shouting, papers flying, phones ringing non-stop. Everyone was making money, or so they thought. I had large positions that had tripled in value. I should have been satisfied, but I wasn't. I wanted to feel that rush again. I increased my positions. I was no longer trading the market, I was chasing a feeling. When the market corrected, it was brutal. I gave back not just my profits, but my composure. That's when I learned that emotional intoxication is more dangerous than any price movement. It makes you forget the rules that protect you. The market rewards patience and punishes excitement. You can't feel euphoric when you're winning or devastated when you're losing. Both reactions are emotional extremes that blind you to the next opportunity. You must cultivate neutrality, a quiet balance where profit doesn't make you reckless and loss doesn't make you fearful. That neutrality is where real power lies. I once met a trader who told me, "I've been in this game 20 years, and I still can't sleep when I'm in a big position." I told him, "Then you haven't learned the most important lesson yet. If your positions keep you awake, they're too large for your emotional capacity." The best traders sleep well, not because they don't risk, but because they know they can handle the outcome, good or bad. If you can't sleep, you're not in control. Your emotions are. I've seen traders blow up accounts not from lack of knowledge, but from emotional fatigue. They overtraded, overreacted, overstayed. The mind can only handle so much stress before it cracks, and when it does, the market senses it and takes what's left. The speculator's mind must be rested, disciplined, and detached. You must protect your mental capital as fiercely as your financial capital, because once your mind breaks, no amount of money can save you. Emotional control is not a switch you flip, it's a skill you cultivate daily. It's the result of reflection, journaling, observing your own reactions, and studying your own mistakes. Every loss is tuition paid to the school of discipline. But most traders never graduate. They repeat the same mistakes, driven by the same impulses, expecting different results. There were days when I'd swear I'd never break my rules again, and the next week I'd do the same thing. It wasn't until I began to understand my emotional patterns that I started to grow. I realized that I didn't lose because of the market's behavior, but because of my reaction to it. The market moved as it always does. My emotions were the variable. That realization was both humbling and liberating, because once you accept that your emotions are the only thing you can control, you stop blaming the world for your losses. You stop blaming news, brokers, manipulators. You realize the market isn't personal, it doesn't care who you are. It's you who gives meaning to the noise, and in doing so, you create your own downfall. When fear strikes, it's often not the loss itself that hurts, it's the fear of being wrong. Ego can't stand being wrong. It takes courage to admit, "I made a mistake," and even more courage to act on that admission. The longer you delay, the more the loss grows, and the more your ego clings to hope. But every great trader learns that small losses are simply the cost of staying in business. When I look back, some of my greatest successes came right after I took a disciplined loss. Cutting a bad position freed my mind to see the next opportunity clearly. A trader carrying a loss trades defensively, emotionally, and with hesitation. Once that burden is gone, clarity returns. The lesson? A loss doesn't end your career. Emotional attachment to that loss does. Greed, on the other hand, is a subtle poison. It whispers that you deserve more, that you've earned more, that this one will make you rich beyond measure. But the moment you trade with entitlement, you're finished. The market doesn't owe you a thing. You can follow every rule, do every analysis, and still lose. That's not unfair, it's nature. The market doesn't reward effort, it rewards timing, preparation, and detachment. And then there's revenge trading, the deadliest form of emotional blindness. A man loses, and his pride demands justice. He re-enters not because the setup is right, but because his ego wants to win back what it lost. I've done it. Everyone has. And every time, it ends the same way, double the loss, double the regret. The only revenge worth taking is mastering yourself so thoroughly that you never make that same emotional mistake again. Some traders think emotional control means never feeling anything. That's not true. You'll always feel fear, greed, excitement, disappointment. The key is not to let those feelings dictate action. You must feel them, acknowledge them, and still act according to plan. Like a soldier who feels fear in battle but still follows orders, you must trade by your system, not your pulse. The greatest danger in trading isn't losing money, it's losing discipline. Money can be regained. Discipline, once broken, takes months or years to rebuild. Every time you break your rule and get away with it, you reinforce bad behavior. The market lets you win sometimes just to test your resolve. That's the cruelest trick of all. It rewards undisciplined behavior long enough to make you confident, then crushes you when you least expect it. If you ever feel the urge to act impulsively, step away, close your charts, walk outside, breathe. The market will be there when you return. The best trade you'll ever make is the one you didn't take when emotions were in charge. Resisting that impulse is how fortunes are protected. There's a saying I live by: the market is like the ocean. You can't fight the waves, you learn to ride them. The waves of emotion are constant. They rise in hope and crash in fear. Your job is not to stop them, but to stay balanced through them. If you can't surf the waves of your own psychology, you'll drown in them. I've seen men lose everything and come back stronger, not because they found a better strategy, but because they found themselves. They stopped trading to win and started trading to survive. Once you learn that survival is the first rule of speculation, you begin to act differently. You protect your capital, you manage your risk, and you respect your emotions as warnings, not guides. Emotional control also extends to your personal life. A man who is chaotic outside the market will be chaotic inside it. If your mind is cluttered, your trades will be too. Discipline isn't something you switch on when you trade, it's how you live. You must build a lifestyle that reflects control, patience, and clarity. The calm trader wins because he carries calmness into every decision. I remember, after one of my biggest collapses, sitting alone in silence for days. My fortune was gone, my confidence shattered. I realized that my downfall wasn't from bad analysis, it was from emotional excess. I had mistaken market success for personal superiority. That illusion destroyed me. I rebuilt slowly, this time understanding that mastery of self comes before mastery of markets. That's what this game teaches in the end. You come for money, but you stay for self-knowledge. You think you're studying charts, but really you're studying your own mind. Every candle, every tick, every decision reveals who you are, your fears, your impatience, your pride, your discipline. And when you finally understand that, trading becomes something deeper. It becomes a mirror for your character. The man who conquers himself through trading will find that discipline shaping every other part of his life, his relationships, his habits, his future. Because the same emotion that ruins traders' impatience, greed, pride ruins men in all things. Control doesn't mean perfection. You'll still make mistakes, still feel doubt, but over time, those emotions lose their grip. You begin to notice the difference between reaction and response. You stop chasing, you stop panicking, you trade less, think more, and trust your system. That's when you finally become free, not from risk, but from the illusion of control. The market will always be bigger than you, faster than you, more unpredictable than you. But your emotions don't have to be. You can train them, shape them, and use them as tools instead of chains. When you reach that point, trading stops being torture and becomes peace. You no longer chase wealth. You let it come as a byproduct of discipline. In the end, the secret to success in trading and in life is simple, though few accept it. Control yourself, or the market will control you. Every decision, every hesitation, every emotional impulse determines whether you stand with the minority who endure or the majority who perish. The charts may change, the markets may evolve, but human emotion never does. Master it, and you've already won half the battle. Because the market doesn't destroy people, it merely reveals who they truly are. And the man who learns to control himself in the face of chaos, who learns to act without emotion and think without fear, that man cannot be broken, not by the market, not by life itself. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the fame, not the headlines. The real victory is mastery of self. Because once you have that, the market is no longer your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. And every tick, every rise, every fall becomes a lesson in the timeless truth. Control your emotions, and everything else follows.